When the plane crashed in the Mongolian desert, the survivors salvaged the wreckage to build a new aircraft, relying entirely on a man who had spent his life designing toys, never real planes. Water was running out, bandits were in pursuit, and everyone knew that a single mistake would spell the end. Yet, when only 5 bullets remained to start the engine, the decision the captain made would determine whether they would make it home or be buried forever in the sands. In the Mongolian desert, a small oil drilling crew has been digging for months without finding a trace of oil. Captain Frank Towns is given the job of flying the whole crew home safely. The crew boards, relieved to finally be heading back. Just before takeoff, Frank picks up one more passenger from the desert, with no idea this flight is about to become a fight for survival. Soon after takeoff, Frank spots a massive sandstorm ahead. With fuel already low, he decides to fly straight over it instead of rerouting. Elliot warns that the plane can't handle this altitude with this many people aboard, but an overconfident Frank ignores him. A fatal call. The plane plows into the storm, sand chokes an engine, and Frank loses control completely. The tail clips a rock formation and tears off before the plane slams into the open desert, badly wrecked. The survivors realize their communication system is dead. No way to reach the outside world. Once the storm passes, the group builds crosses in the sand for the crew who didn't survive. Elliot blames the captain. If Frank had listened, none of this would have happened. The group sets up camp and finds they have about a month's food left. Surely help will come before then. One worker suggests they simply walk out towards civilization, but another points out they're stranded 700 kilometers from the nearest city, in the peak heat of July, with sandstorms liable to send anyone on foot walking in circles to nowhere. They agree to stay put and spend the night in the plane. That night, crew member John steps outside to clear his head, right as another sandstorm sweeps him away from the wreck. He spends the night lost in the dark. By morning, the others realize he's missing and it sinks in how much trouble they're really in. Kelly insists the company will never send a rescue since it's already drowning in losses. Ian disagrees and, fed up, decides to strike out across the desert alone with a water container. A fight breaks out over the water, and in the chaos a container bursts, draining precious water into the sand. Everyone stands there stunned until Elliot comes running, shouting that he's figured out how to get them out. He's spent all this time studying the aircraft's construction and realized they can rebuild the plane from the wreckage. The crew calls him delusional until he reveals something about his past that makes them stop laughing. Even so, Frank argues they can't work through this heat without collapsing, and he's still banking on a company rescue. That evening, feeling responsible for everything, Frank sets out alone to search for John, refusing to risk Kelly's life by letting her come. After hours of walking, Frank reaches the crash site and finds the body of the crewmate who fell during the crash, along with spent bullet casings nearby. Before he can process it, John appears and tells him they aren't alone out here. Bandits killed that man. John says he's ready to walk all 700 kilometers home if he must, since his family is waiting. Hearing this, Frank finally accepts the disaster is on him and agrees to rebuild the plane using Elliot's plan. Back at camp, the rest of the crew rushes to greet them with relief, and Frank rallies everyone to help rebuild. They build a protective perimeter around the wreck and initially work only at night to save water, until an accident sparks a fuel container fire and a massive explosion, forcing them onto punishing daytime shifts instead, which drains their water even faster. Still, they push forward and get more than halfway done. Just as things look up, rain rolls in that evening, threatening to soak parts still left exposed and risk a fuel fire if lightning strikes. Frank and Elliot bravely rig a makeshift lightning cable and manage to save the build just in time. The next morning, they christen the rebuilt aircraft Phoenix. Resting on a dune, an exhausted Kelly spots a stranger's camp nearby and rushes to warn Frank. It's the same bandits John had mentioned. Frank and Ian go over to ask for help, but the bandits don't understand, and one of them opens fire. Frank shoots back. One bandit escapes, and the crew's own wounded man dies from his injuries despite being carried back to camp. The next morning, they find a wounded raider at the abandoned bandit camp and bring him in, only for Elliot to walk up and shoot him dead. Elliot turns on Frank again, blaming him for the original crash and now for this bandit standoff. They come to blows and rebuilding grinds to a halt. Elliot refuses to resume work until Frank apologizes, and since Elliot alone holds the design, Frank gives in. With the bandits still watching from a distance, Elliot finally announces the plane is ready. While searching Elliot's bag for a map, Frank instead finds an old blueprint and realizes, horrified, that Elliot never designed a real aircraft in his life. He built toy models for a toy company. The revelation guts everyone, having poured everything into a plane based on toy-scale engineering. Elliot insists full-size planes follow the same aerodynamic principles as small models, and that Phoenix will fly fine. Frank doesn't believe him, and the fight boils over. One grief-stricken crew member grabs a gun to kill Elliot, but Frank stops him just in time. The group collapses into the sand, defeated. Then another sandstorm rolls in, and the wind actually lifts the plane off the ground. Elliot's design is working, but once the storm passes, the plane has sunk back more than halfway into the sand. Frank reminds everyone their families are still waiting at home, and they haven't lost yet. Together, they rope the plane and haul it out by hand, and Frank and Elliot's rivalry finally turns to friendship. With just 5 ignition rounds left to start the engine, Frank fires the first nothing. 2 more clear out engine debris, leaving only 2 rounds. He fires both together for one final burst of thrust, and the engine roars to life. The crew climbs aboard just as the bandits return for revenge. Frank guns it to full speed. The bandits chase but stop short at the edge of a massive ravine, certain the scrap-built plane is about to crash. Instead, against all odds, Phoenix lifts off and soars into the sky, the crew having pulled off their own rescue with a plane built entirely from wreckage finally heading home. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel.